Most frustration, resentment, and emotional reactivity doesn't come from what people do, it comes from the lens they're using it to interpret life through. You're listening to the Be Better podcast. I'm Harrison Orr. I've coached hundreds of men who can handle pressure everywhere else except where it matters most. So this work is about grounded presence and self-leadership. Today, I want to talk about the fundamental lens that we view life through. And we're going to go into beliefs. And a lot of people will maybe roughly know what their beliefs are, will have heard things about their limiting beliefs, and maybe even know what some of their limiting beliefs are. And if you don't know what your limiting beliefs are, take a look around at where you're not too happy with your life, and I can guarantee you that you've got some limiting beliefs in that space. Maybe it's in your marriage or how you show up in certain arenas of life. And if you've ever felt blockages, you self-sabotage, or you just have these impulses or things that don't align with what you say you consciously want, there's some beliefs there that are at play. And I want to speak into these high-level beliefs because the beliefs that we truly believe, we never really question. And until we can look at those beliefs and actually start to question those, well, first of all, just be aware of them, then we'll keep on repeating the same mistakes, the same situations over and over again. And these are going to be beliefs about the world, yourself, and even your marriage, right? And I want to help to bring some clarity to this for you so that if these are playing out in your life, in your marriage and how you're showing up, that you can start to question these. Start to question, what do I believe to be true for me to say that, for me to assume that, for me to feel this way even? So if we look at macro beliefs as the unconscious assumption that we hold about human nature, right? What people are like and how they should behave. Most people have in some time in their life either used or, had this line said to them, something along the lines of, well, that's not what I would do. That's not what I would say. That's not how I would behave. That's not what I would insert, context of the situation. And it's this huge projection onto this other person of, well, that's not what I would do. So you should be better. You should be like me. And we wouldn't be in this situation, or you wouldn't have done that. Very, very egotistical. A lot of assumptions in that. And just to touch on that before we go any deeper, to dispel that and just completely reframe that, that statement is so wrong, right? Because there is absolutely zero evidence to say that if you had lived that person's life up until that moment in time, that you would not have said and done the exact same thing. And the same if they were in our shoes. Because the reason that we do and believe anything is because at some point in our life, we have been rewarded or punished for that thing. We've had certain behaviors that have been rewarded in life. So naturally, we want to do more of those. There have been certain things in life where we were quote unquote punished for. We were made fun of. We were told that we were naughty boy. We were punished, like maybe you got hit as a kid, or there was some negative repercussion that then told that your internal system, that part of you learned, don't do that again because that sucked. And that's essentially where all the parts of us that protect us are born, right? Something happened. We felt this extreme emotion, maybe guilt, shame, embarrassment, or whatever. And then that part learned, that sucked. I'm going to protect you to make sure that doesn't happen again. And often that, for most nice guys, that comes in the form of people pleasing, not having boundaries, looking after everybody else before us, so being more of a caretaker than anything else, not making a decision because you don't want to get it wrong, like removing the possibility of us being put in that situation again. But I digress. So when we go back to these macro assumptions, this is the lens that we view everything through, right? It's the lens that we view other people's behaviors. It's the lens that we view our own behaviors, even sometimes. And it's not even like there's no one really exempt to this. Like we still view our kids and our partner and everyone through this. But these are often below conscious awareness, right? They're not something that we walk around consciously thinking. Most of the time they're inherited or they've come from either that punishment or reward, which if it's come from your parents, you could say that was inherited as well because they've pushed their beliefs and whatnot onto us, both genetically in the conception of us, but also through the raising and the nurture and environment that we were raised in. Yeah. And so these things then become emotional reflexes because if we view the lens, if we had no lens at all to view life through, the amount of uncertainty would rattle our brain. Like a lot of people struggle to have uncertainty of like in small doses in their life. So we create stories or frames or things to view that through, in which case it removes some of that uncertainty. A big one, right? I'm not going to get into if religion is real or like anything like that, but you could say that the belief in heaven or an afterlife is simply an attempt to reduce the uncertainty of what happens, right? If you believe that there's an afterlife, if you believe there's a heaven, if you believe that when someone dies on this earth, they go somewhere else, somewhere ideally nicer than here to be rewarded for their good deeds here, it makes it a lot easier to sleep at night for the ones that we've lost. It makes dying maybe a little less scary. But if it's just this complete black hole of nothing happens, I don't know what happens, like there's not even a shred of an answer, that's a lot of uncertainty. That makes it really hard to grapple with that scenario. Yeah. So just as an example. So when we project these things onto other people, that's not what I do. They should know better. Or if they cared, this is how they would behave. The hidden belief that comes underneath this is that people have the same awareness, the same regulation, the same emotional capacity that I do, and are choosing not to use it. Like there's two big things that come out of that. I was watching a Chase Hughes video the other day, and he is I believe CIA or FBI, no CIA, I think it was, behavioral profilist and analyst and a specialist. So like that's his realm, right? Human behavior, human psychology, all that stuff. Like really smart guy. And he was saying, he was talking about the gap with goal setting, right? Why it doesn't work so well for most people, because when most people set goals, there is this big assumption that everything will be stable, right? That you will never have any urges to divert from the plan, that you will have stable motivation, you will have a stable and regulated nervous system, you will have stable neurotransmitters and biology that all align in direction with your goals and who you want to be and where you want to go. When you say it like that, it sounds like, oh, wow, that actually takes a lot for things to be in alignment for me to be consistent on the long term, right? And I don't say that to discourage people, but when we understand that, it makes it a lot easier to then not be so unrealistic when we're talking about the future, when we're setting these things. Because we often imagine, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be so motivated. I'm going to show up and it's going to feel like this. And then I'm going to do that. But no one likes to visualize, cool, how am I going to drag my ass through that when I do not feel like doing it? When I am tired, when I'm distracted by all my cheap vices that try to pull me offline and I really don't want it. I don't have the energy. I don't have the mental capacity. How am I going to drag myself through it then? And it's often in those moments where we're not as disciplined as we'd like to be. We're not as emotionally present or in control. We don't have the most emotional capacity as normal. We're not as regulated as normal. And maybe we say or we do things that, are a result of that lack of capacity and regulation and whatnot. And then to be judged on that, assuming that we have the same awareness, regulation, and capacity all the time. It doesn't sound right, does it? But that's essentially what we're doing when we make these assumptions or these projections onto other people. And the next piece, just a short break. If you're a man who's winning on paper, like the business is solid, the money is looked after, life looks good, but at home it feels distant, you feel disconnected, then this is for you. It's not like you want less responsibility. You just want to be able to handle more without getting reactive, checking out, or just getting tense. You want to stay calm in your wife's emotions. You want to be present with your kids, confident without performing, and ultimately respected and desired without having to prove your worth. But right now, it probably feels like you're holding it all together, maybe barely, or maybe you're still chasing it, but you haven't embodied it yet. Now, I'm running a free live masterclass called Evolve, where I break down how to build grounded masculine presence from the inside out. So your success stops costing you your marriage, your energy, and your self-respect, so that you can be the man who does it all. If that hits, the link is in the show notes. Now back to the episode. On the choice, it's the assumption that people have the same awareness, regulation, and emotional capacity that I do and are choosing not to use it. So in NLP, there's a frame that says people are doing the best with what they have. And I don't say that as a cop-out, right? So that you shouldn't have standards, that it excuses people shitty behavior and things like that, right? It's not a astrology sign where you can blame it. Oh, this is in retrograde, so I'm allowed to be a grumpy bitch today. Like, no, that's not what we're talking about. But when it says people are doing the best with what they have, it's not only resources, but it's also the state of their nervous system, right? Like their biology, literally, their conditioning in terms of how they were raised, what they were rewarded for, what they were punished for, and then their protective parts. So how those parts have shaped who they are as a human because of what they've experienced in their younger years. And because of all that combined, most people's responses are reactive. From a nervous system position, like depth, and also an identity parts level of depth as well. Because their nervous system goes into fight or flight, first and foremost, for most people, anytime there's a hint of conflict or the threat or anything like that. And then what takes over then is the protective part. So you've got two levels of reaction here. Just as a side note, that's why the model that we use inside the Grounded Man method is structured the way that it is, because we address the nervous system, then we address the parts, then it's the identity. So it's literally from the root cause in which we stop guys being so reactive and enable them to choose how they respond, how they lead themselves and the moment to the greater good. And so this frame of everybody should be better, everybody should do as I do, or everybody should just not be a dick, doesn't serve us, because it's not realistic and there's so many other factors that come into it. So one thing to remember, that people are not random. Right? The way people behave is not random. They're conditioned and they're patterned. Think about the amount of time that you spend in autopilot every single day. Like the moments that you spend in the morning, just going through the motions on your way to work, maybe at work, when you get home, like you're not fully there present. That's all just pattern recognition, autopilot mode. And when we walk around in that state most of the time, all these responses, all these reactions, they come from that level. So they are not conscious decisions at all. Because this behavior is ultimately driven by that conditioning, your genetics, those experiences early in life, the repetition of traits as well, because that then produces a repeatable result. And then if that's desirable, or at least it's a level of certainty, like, okay, it may not be the best result and you've probably experienced that maybe in your relationship. Maybe you say, I don't know, whatever you want, babe, up to you. And maybe your wife gets the shit. She's sick of deciding. She's sick of, you not making a decision, and you need to change, but there's some barrier. You're afraid of getting it wrong. There's the hesitation of, what if she doesn't like it? What if I fuck it up? What if? And even though you both recognize there's a frustration there's a part of you that would rather that level of frustration than be seen as getting it wrong, be seen as not good enough, be seen as whatever label you've attached to what that situation about getting it wrong would say about you. So when we start to understand that people are not random, that they have these patterns, that they have these conditions, we can stop taking other people's behaviors and responses personally. Like, the emotional charge towards other people massively drops. And then we come to a level of understanding instead of that judgment, maybe even curiosity. Like, one of the big things I do with all my guys now is parts work. And when we start to understand the parts of ourselves deeper and deeper, we then start to recognize that in other people. Like, when you start to see, oh, that's why I was so reactive, because of this part, and it was protecting me from this and it was doing that. Oh, that makes sense. I can now see that in other people. Oh, this part that doesn't want to make a decision, that says, I don't care, up to you, or just is afraid of saying no, afraid of having a hard conversation, just runs away and ghosts you and does this. Oh, I can see that that's just a part of you that's trying to protect you from something, trying to protect you from whatever emotion you've experienced in a similar situation in the past. And then it makes sense. So we're not advocating or allowing this behavior. Like, this does not mean that everybody gets a free pass just to do whatever they want and we have no standards. That's not what this is about at all. But it's about understanding human nature for ourselves and then other people, and then being able to navigate that. Because understanding this behavior is not the same as accepting it. Like, empathy does not mean tolerance. Compassion does not mean agreement. And understanding does not mean self-betrayal, right? The intention of understanding it is so that we can navigate it for ourselves. We can then do what we need to with that part. We can address it. We can understand it. We can heal it. We can help to bring it home, to give it a new role, whatever we need to do in that moment. Sorry, not just in that moment, but for that part, to stop behaving in a way that was formed when we were much younger and maybe doesn't serve us as much anymore. And then when we see this in other people, because we've navigated it within ourselves, we can help to navigate it within them. Whether you're talking about this with a client, or in a business deal, or with your wife or your kids, it makes it a lot easier for us to stay grounded and present and be the regulator of our nervous systems in that moment, than getting flustered and frustrated. Like, if we see these people as just mirrors of ourselves, the curiosity, the empathy, the calmness, despite their maybe triggered reactiveness in that moment, becomes natural. It's not hard to then not get reactive and frustrated, because you're like, oh, I've felt that too. And then we can navigate it, not from a place of superiority, but from compassion and understanding. Because just like them, we've been there, we've felt that, we have that part. So remember that people will act in coherence with their internal system, and that system can still be incompatible. That system can still act in ways that they consciously don't like. But these systems and these parts were birthed from years and years ago. And unless we are doing any personal deep work in this space, those systems will continue to do what they have been designed to do, is protect. And it's the same. You can view protectors and, the parts of us there as just an extension of our nervous system. Because you know what our nervous system doesn't give a shit about? your mood. Our nervous system doesn't give a shit about how happy we are, doesn't care about fulfillment, doesn't care about purpose, doesn't care about our goals, does not care about anything else. All it cares about is that we do not die. That's it. That part of our system, its role is to make sure that we do not die. So when it goes into fight, flight, freeze mode, it's repeating a pattern that it has done in a similar situation before. And when it did that last time, it got a big fat green tick because you are still breathing. It learnt this trigger or this situation, I respond like this, I stay alive. Good job, team. Let's store that in the bank for next time and we'll do it again next time. And it's the same with those protector parts. When there's the hint of emotion and you avoid the conflict, or you have to solve it, or you have to people please, or those traits come out again, it's the exact same process. So working with the nervous system, working with these parts is just untriggering yourself, for lack of a better word, so that in those moments, instead of being reactive from a place where you don't get to choose how you respond, to then consciously getting to decide, how do I want to handle this? Do I need to say something? Do I need to do something? Do I just need to shut up and stay present? And that comes from choice, not from reactivity. And the crazy thing is, ultimately, you might still do a very similar thing. Right? Like if in those emotional moments with your wife, for example, your typical response is to freeze, right? Your brain kind of freaks out, doesn't know what to do. It checks out and you kind of stand there like a deer in the headlights and like, oh, maybe you apologize. Maybe you kind of just agree with her, but don't know what to say. Just go into freeze mode. Coming from choice, you might decide that the best course of action in that moment is, I just need to shut up and stay present. So you're there, you're still, you're silent, you're listening to understand, not listening to respond. And then you can navigate the situation as it unfolds. And even though the actions might be similar, I can guarantee you the felt experience from your partner in that moment will be light years apart, like night and day difference. And you might even feel it too. It might feel uncomfortable. It most likely will feel unfamiliar and uncomfortable at first because you're used to checking out, running away. But then afterwards, we get that magical bit of feedback of, I stayed present. I didn't speak. I didn't have to run away. I didn't have to escape this moment, and I didn't die. Fuck yeah. One small bit of trust and respect and proof that I can stay in that moment and live to tell the tale. And that's how, over time, we build up this trust in ourselves. We build up this resilience in our nervous system to handle these things and not have to go into that fight or flight mode. And then we retrain it from a place of choice, not reaction. And so ultimately, going back to the lens that we see life through, when we change our lens on how we view the world, the underlying beliefs that run our entire life and the way that we view the world and other people, your expectations of other people will soften. Not because your standards have dropped. This is not about standards, but the expectation that other people will perform the same as you, do the same as you, think the same as you drops. Because unconscious people aren't expected to act consciously. In the same way that we don't always make the best decisions because we are human, because of the myriad of reasons that we've gone through earlier. And so other people can't be expected to either. Just because we're firing on all cylinders in our A game, someone else might be in their off season, in that day, in that week, in that season of life. The second piece that happens when a man will change the lens, his reactivity will reduce. Because behavior isn't then experienced as a personal attack. It's not all about us. the example I commonly use is, you're driving down the freeway and then you're taking the off ramp, and then some guy speeds up doing 30 Ks, miles, whatever, over the speed limit, cuts you off. And, if you're there, lose your mind, give him the finger, beep, honk, do all the things, completely reactive. Think about that logically. Do you honestly think that he saw you, thought, fuck that guy, and then cut you off just to annoy you? Like it was a purely personal attack? No, of course not. That dude's probably late for an appointment, late for work of some sort. Maybe his grandma's in the hospital. Maybe his wife's about to give birth. Maybe he left the stove on at home. His house is on fire. He's racing his dog to the vet because it just got bit by a snake. There's million other reasons that have sweet fuck all to do with you. And so we can go about our life not taking everything so personally, because it's not. Yes, there's always going to be, in personal situations, okay, what's the mirror here? What's for me? What can I learn? And back and forth. But we're not going to go into that now. But just don't take things personally. Third is the third thing that changes when we change the lens that we view life through is compassion and understanding becomes natural. Like calm understanding is not performative empathy. It's just, I see myself in you. I can see that. Like I can see, like, and if you can't, then there's curiosity about trying to understand. Like, wow, to be honest, I don't know how you wouldn't say that, but like, man, I don't know how you got to that conclusion. I don't know how you saw that thing and came up with this conclusion, but like, please let me know. I want to understand, like, what did you see here that I didn't? How did you interpret that has, escaped my radar? And then with that, we get to understand other people's perspectives and their view on the world, which ultimately starts to expand our view on the world. And so we will never have a completely rounded view of the world because we've all got our biases and our lenses on. But it starts to just loosen our grip that I saw it my way. That's the right way. That's exactly what happened. It's like, maybe that's what happened. And then we can move through life with a bit more ease and understanding. And now I want to apply this to marriage, right? Where there are so many assumptions, and the amount of men that I talk to that have some of these assumptions that absolutely do not serve them for the life of them, but they still have them. And you might have them too. So think about the stories that you tell yourself in your marriage when your partner does something to piss you off, when they trigger you, when they say or they do something that you don't like. Maybe you've asked them not to. Maybe you say like, well, she knows I don't like that, or whatever. Maybe you argue over parenting styles or plans, whatever it is. The one fundamental belief that is missing is that we are on the same team. Same team. The stories that come up of she wouldn't do this, she's just a bitch, she's not organized, she's trying to trigger me, she's trying to test me, she's just being this, she's a narcissist, she's this. Totally forgetting that we are supposed to be on the same team. And what that does downstream is it removes ambiguous behavior as being interpreted wrongly, right? It removes that question mark of assuming the worst, of she didn't answer her phone straight away, so she's out cheating, or she said or she did this because she was trying to piss me off, because she wanted to trigger me. She knows that's an insecurity or whatever else. And those stories that come up collapse much faster. The resentment doesn't spiral, and tone that you use with each other is contextualized, not weaponized. When we remember that, it makes it a hell of a lot easier to stop telling ourselves bullshit stories, to seek to understand our partner, and also to stay in check in ourselves. Like, if there's What this also boils down to in a marriage, and this needs to be voiced, I think, in just about every single marriage, is if there are two ways of taking something, just remember that I love you and I meant the good way. Think about how many problems how many arguments, how many tiffs, how many stories, how many like moments of tension, of frustration, of just shitty stories and resentment that simple frame, that simple anchor that you could come back to would solve. Like imagine if every time you were having a fight, you were having an argument, you stopped it to set the pre-frame. Before we go any further, just remember that I love you, that we're on the same team, and it's you and me against the problem, not you against me. That fair? Yeah, fair. Okay, cool. Now we're on the same team against, like, trying to figure out a solution to the problem. It's not personal attacks. Because you'll know in any argument, whether it's marital or anywhere in life, as soon as the comments, as soon as like the argument has moved from the original issue into personal attacks, then it means like it's gone, right? It's completely out the window. There is no logic left anymore. And it's not even two adults arguing anymore. It's the parts of you, the little children coming out to have their tiff and to be seen and to protect each other to protect yourselves from, all the issues that came up when you were kids. And that's why you've got the protective mechanisms that you do and all the things. And so this won't avoid conflict, right? It won't stop you having disagreements because disagreements are going to be healthy if you're being truly honest. And it doesn't mean that you tolerate disrespect. It doesn't mean that you have to suppress that truth or that honesty, but it allows response instead of reaction. It allows clarity instead of injury. It allows leadership instead of defensiveness. Like, I can't stress how much having these high level of agreements has saved stupid fights and arguments in my relationship. And the amount of times that it stopped those spiraling stories of mine. Because I used to be the king of that, right? I used to be the king of overthinking, of downward spirals in everything. Like in relationships before I got married, even with my wife before we got married, I was anxious, I was jealous, I was passive aggressive, I was all the traits of a typical nice guy. Would say yes when I wanted to say no. I didn't have boundaries. I would people please. I'd get resentful, and then I'd get frustrated and didn't get what I want. Try to suppress all the shit for months, and then I just have this huge blow up over nothing, and then apologize, and then never do anything about it. So I've lived that. So I know how long I used to spend in each of those stories, in each of those spirals, in each of those moods over absolutely nothing. And the clarity and the freedom now, just removing that spiraling, removing those stories has been incredible. So if you don't have if you don't have consistent check-ins with your partner, I highly recommend it. It makes it so much easier to speak up about things that are going well, things that are not going so well, things that you like to change, both from a marital standpoint, from an individual standpoint, from a household running, from a parenting standpoint, like everything. And then that way, when you address them from a calm and regulated state, it can be received in that way, and it doesn't get brought up in an emotional state, in which case the other person probably isn't going to be very open to receiving it in that moment, especially if they are also heightened in their emotions. Then again, coming back to the parts. Oh no, sorry, I'll go back. If you do have those regular check-ins, highly recommend adding or getting clear on those macro agreements. Those macro agreements and stating them together to have as that anchor point. right? You chunk all the way up, all the way up. And you can you do this with every argument, right? Any point of conflict. You chunk all the way up till we get to a macro level of agreement. Right? The macro level of agreement with marriages should usually be we love each other. We want the same life together. We're heading in the same direction. We have all these things together. And then as you go downstream, the nuances of how we parent, of how we do certain things, then they can be collaborated on, but they're not the big things. If you have issues with the small things and then you chunk all the way up and you get to the point of like, oh shit, I actually want to live this type of lifestyle. She wants to live that kind of lifestyle. And I'm not sure if this is going to work long term for us both to be happy. Okay, well, that's the thing that needs to be addressed, not the surface level cracks down the bottom, because you can keep patching them up day after day. But if you don't fix the macro level agreements, then you're going to have cracks for days. Couple more insights. The lens that you use on others is the same one you use on yourself. That's why I'm such a strong believer that our kids and our partners are our greatest mirrors and teachers if we allow them to be, right? Weak, victim-minded men will say like, no, she's just a bitch. No, my kid just doesn't listen. He's rude. He's this, he's that. Cool. Like, if that's you, I don't know what you're doing here. But anyway, how we perceive other people is just a reflection of us. So if you're getting frustrated that your child hasn't learned emotional regulation yet, and he's 4, 5, amazing. Where can you not control your emotions? Your wife is late. You're supposed to leave at 2:30 and it's now 1:45 and she's still putting her makeup on, brushing her teeth, doing whatever, and you're frustrated and you want to blame her. Amazing. Where are you not efficient with your time? Where are you late? Everything is a mirror. The things that we judge other people for, we see in ourselves. The things that we criticize other people for are mirrors of us. Interesting thought. If you've been following my content for a while, you may have seen one of my posts put out a while ago. On screen it said, she loves you, but she's not attracted to you. And it got a couple of thousand comments on there. And a lot of guys trying to insult me about my hairline, about my receding hairline and everything else. Something that I have come to peace with, right? I look at my head in the mirror every single morning. I'm well aware of the state of my hairline. That's why I shaved my head. I needed to see how good or bad I looked with it. And if it was that bad, I was on the first flight over to Turkey. But I decided, you know what, I can dig that for a couple more years. I don't think it's that bad. I'm happy with that. And so I'm totally at peace with that. Like there's nothing anyone can say about my hairline or my hairstyle or lack of that is triggering in any way, shape or form to me. Like I've completely come to terms with that. It used to be though. And so the people that make those comments in an attempt to insult me, to upset me, to trigger me, I just about promise you that is something that they are insecure about. Either they are insecure about their hairline, their maybe loss of hair, their balding patch, or it's something that they, if they haven't got to that stage in life, are very worried about. Something that they're concerned about. And so they see that as an insecurity of other people's because it is for them. So notice the things that people use as insults are ones that they deem as insulting, as offensive, because they would get upset if someone used it on them. But not only do we see, I don't want to make this negative, so it's not only the negatives that we see in other people, it's the positives too. Like the things that we compliment other people, the things that we admire in other people, we can only see them in other people because we have them within ourselves. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to see it. So when we're seeing that, yeah, man, I can really appreciate and honor how much work and discipline it took to grow that business, to have that body, to overcome that feat, because you've experienced glimpses of it yourself. You have that within you. And so you admire it in other people, right? Because then that's again another projection. We see our values held to our standards, if not higher, in other people. And that creates that admiration, that compliment, that acknowledgement, even. And so coming back to the lens that we use on other people's is the same that we use on ourselves. If we're operating from that moral projection, we will judge too harshly. We will lack patience with other people's states, with their parts, with their nervous system, and interpret your own reactions as failure because of the standards that you hold for other people are the ones that you hold for yourself. Now, when we have this level of understanding and coherence in our value, or these beliefs, I should say, and then we've done some parts in our nervous system work, you get to the point of, it makes sense that I reacted that way. I can see why that part of me tried to keep me safe by doing that. And then the goal then is to choose differently now. Like, one of the things that we do in the grounded man method is spaciousness. Space between the trigger and the response. So we're not reacting from a nervous system point. Space between our adult self and our parts. So our parts then aren't reactive in that moment to protect us. Our adult self, which is the part of us that gets to choose differently, chooses in that moment how to respond, what to say, what to do, what comes next. So to wrap this up, a few prompts to remember from this, because we've gone a little bit longer than I anticipated. People are not bad. They're conditioned and they are patterned. Resentment is usually a lens problem, not a people problem. Understanding the pattern restores choice. When you assume shared intent until proven otherwise. That one's for your marriage. And regulation follows interpretation. When we jump to these conclusions, it doesn't serve anyone. It might serve you in trying to protect yourself, but it doesn't serve the relationship, doesn't serve you trying to understand this other person from a point that actually benefits you in the long run and the relationship. So I can close this out here. The question isn't what people are doing, it's what you're assuming about why they're doing it. The story that why that person did that. Because they're mean, because they're rude, because they're an asshole, because they don't like me, because they are, insert this label, insert this offensive thing, whatever it is. But if you want to reflect on this, you want to go a little bit deeper. Like I said, introduce those check-ins and those macro agreements and beliefs into your marriage. But go a little bit deeper in your personal life and say, where in your life would changing the lens change everything? Change how you feel, change how you respond, change how you viewed your options, people, everything. Don't be sorry. Be better. Bye.